It seems crazy that we're already here, but 11 games into this new season, and the Dallas Mavericks have fired Nico Harrison. 9 months after the shocking, huge, massive Luka Doncic trade, whatever words you want to refer to it as, maybe the biggest trade in the history of the NBA, one of the biggest trades in all of sports, almost universally detested the day that it happened, and it's been something that he just was never going to recover from. And so I don't know what made Mavericks management finally decide today was the day. I think there were a few things that are probably contributing to that and helped make that decision. One thing I want to point out, though, is Shams had the news that Nico was going to be fired before the meeting had even taken place. His tweet is like, at 10 a.m. Central Time, Nico Harrison is expected to be relieved of his duties by Patrick Dumont in a meeting. Like, what? Could you imagine, like, he gets the notification, Nico gets the notification, like, oh, I wonder what this meeting could be. And then he just happens to have notifications on for Shams and sees that and is like, oh, well, that sucks. But it's such an interesting thing. And like I said, this was supposed to be his big plan. And now the Mavericks are pivoting on it 11 games into this season. Now, obviously, there's a ton of stuff to go through with all of this. And I have talked about a ton of it either through the newsletter or in videos before or social media, so I don't want to rehash the entire Luka trade and everything that has done to antagonize the Mavericks fan base. I just want to point out the couple things that kind of led up to this moment and what I think kind of brought us to this moment here where it was just they couldn't ignore it anymore. So Monday night, the Mavericks were playing the Milwaukee Bucks, and it was actually a pretty good competitive game. It came down to the last few possessions. There was a clutch PJ Washington free throw moment where he had to try to intentionally miss a free throw to get the rebound and put it back up to try to tie the game. There was a lot of suspense, and in the middle of all of that, the fans were still chanting, "Fire Nico, fire Nico," and it's important to note that, because yeah, they've been chanting it at every single game. They've had their signs, they've had all sorts of stuff to protest Nico Harrison since the trade happened last season. But this one was different because it was the first game that the owner of the team now, Patrick Dumont, had actually attended in person at home since the opening game of the season. So this was his first time back in the arena hearing all of that. Not to mention, we get the incredible visual of him sitting next to a young fan in a Lakers jersey, a Lakers Luka jersey, and the story starts to come out about that fan, and he was saying he bought the jersey in protest after the Luka trade, and that on opening night he flipped off Patrick Dumont, and his family, who has season tickets, basically said, you can't come to a game again until you go and apologize to him. And they actually sat and had a pretty nice conversation for a lot of the game. It's interesting to think that this kid might be like the new savior of the Mavericks franchise. I don't really know how else to put it. It's just interesting that he mentioned too that Patrick Dumont had kind of apologized for the state of everything, and that kind of speaks to the disconnect that the Dumont family and the Adelsons have had since they bought the franchise, because they bought it, they're casino people, they're not basketball fans, they're not heavily plugged in. Like when you think of an owner like Steve Ballmer, who is like living and breathing and dying with every single game, that's not this family, that's not the Mavericks owners, that's not Patrick Dumont. So Nico Harrison was like his brain trust. And I read a report after the finals run that the Mavericks had that the relationship between Nico and Patrick Dumont was like, could not get any closer. They were like this. They were locked in together. And Patrick looked at him like a basketball like savant. Like, oh man, you made all these great moves and we have this team and we're so competitive. And it bought him a lot of goodwill. Now, I don't want to say that all of this is on Nico Harrison. I think it's pretty clear that they're working hard to make Nico Harrison the scapegoat, and Nico, honestly, has done a pretty good job himself of doing that as well, with the way he's talked about things and all the different quotes he gave after the trade and heading into this season. But I think a lot of it does fall on Patrick Dumont as well. You look back at the trade, and we'll talk about what they got and how it all has unfolded in a second, but you look back at the trade, and there was a quote that Patrick Dumont had after the trade, where he said, if you look at the greats in the league, the people you and I grew up with, Jordan, Bird, Kobe, Shaq, they worked really hard every day with a singular focus to win. And if you don't have that, it doesn't work, and you shouldn't be a part of the Dallas Mavericks. Kind of impossible to think he's talking about anything but Luka Doncic. Now, there's a chance that he was just repeating things that Nico Harrison had said to him. Oh, he doesn't work hard. Oh, he doesn't try. Oh, he's out of shape. And, who knows? Maybe Patrick Dumont's not paying any attention. I don't know who buys a sports team to not become super involved in the sports team. Like, at the very least, to sit courtside at all of the games and flex that you own a sports team. Like, that feels like it's like priority number one for anyone buying a team, is they want to flaunt that they have a team. But this kind of just feels like it was a means to an end for this family and for these new owners. So maybe there is a disconnect there, but the fact that he was so on board with Nico Harrison, I don't think should go unnoticed here in the wake of all of this. And meanwhile, in that game, while Patrick Dumont is talking to that young fan in the Luka jersey, you have the fans in Dallas chanting "Fire Nico" as loud as they can. And we got a report from Mark Stein the day before as well, I think it was Sunday in his column on Substack, where we found out that they're using a special rolling portable staircase that they normally use for hockey games, for Dallas Stars hockey games at that arena, to help get Nico Harrison out of the arena without having to cross or walk by any fans, because he's just hearing it the entire time he is at games. I mean, think about how many videos have come out already that are fans heckling him and chanting and booing and all of that. And so it got to the point where they were like whisking him away on this secret portable staircase. It's crazy. And the fact that all of this is going on and it's distracting from, like I said, a really good game, and more importantly, probably the best game of Cooper Flagg's young career, the fact that all of this overshadowed what was happening on the court kind of just goes to show that this disconnect was beyond repair and that nothing was going to start getting better until Nico Harrison was gone. And this might be a little bit of a conspiracy theory here, but I think the fact that Dallas had a 22-year home game sellout streak snapped this season, I think that plays a part in it too. I mean, obviously, the only way fans' voices can really be heard is with your money. And if you're not paying for season tickets, if you're not paying to go to the games or for jerseys, for merch, paying to watch anything like that, it is a pretty effective way to get your point across. And so if the attendance was steadily down, the fans that are there are malcontent and upset and chanting things the whole game that aren't about what's happening on the court, and there's just this general malaise laying over things, they're gonna see it in the sales. And with how much they look at sales, I'm sure that this news coming out that their sellout streak had snapped after 22 years. Think about what that means for that Dallas fan base, how loyal they have been to the franchise, and the disrespect and slight that they have felt in the last 9 months over this trade and over the treatment of this trade. Now, I will say too, of course, you have to mention the big part of the trade was Luka Doncic for Anthony Davis. And Anthony Davis has just been hurt. He's in his early 30s. He's probably physically a little past his prime, being a 7-foot center. He looks like he's put on more weight. And in total, since being traded to the Mavericks, he has played 9 of a possible 44 games. So you're not seeing the impact on the court. That's the whole thing that Nico hitched his wagon to, was defense wins championships. We just got one of the best defensive anchors in the league. So we're going to be set. We have Klay Thompson. We have Kyrie Irving, who's hurt but will be back. We have Cooper Flagg now, and it just has not looked good. The Mavericks, 11 games into the season, are third in defensive rating. They are incredible on defense, but offensively they are 29th and dead last in points per game. So this is a team that cannot score, cannot move the ball, cannot do anything. And I think part of it is also maybe they want to get out before serious damage is done to the development of Cooper Flagg. Because Jason Kidd has him playing point guard right now, and it looks like he's at half speed compared to everyone else. It looks like he is really struggling with the responsibility of getting everyone involved and of not being too aggressive and constantly looking for his shots. And I think part of that comes from the expectations, fairly or unfairly, that Nico put on this team when he said, we got Anthony Davis and did this trade to become a title contender, to get back to the finals. Luka wasn't good enough to get us over the hump. We got to the finals and we lost. this is the move. And so that puts a ton of pressure on everyone on the roster, but especially Flag, who is now looked at as like the new franchise savior cornerstone that they can market. But the fans, meanwhile, are a little hesitant because they just had their hearts ripped out with this Luka trade. And it just overall creates this disconnect where you have this really passionate fan base that wants to cheer and celebrate the players who, even at the end of last season had that run to try to make the play-in. You want to cheer them, but you're so upset at ownership that you just can't get past it. I will say, too, the Dumont family released a statement, and here it is. It is an open letter to Mavs fans that came out right after the news of this trade. So let's see. It says, Dear Mavs family, on May 30th, 2024, the Mavericks won the Western Conference Championship. We came up short in the NBA Finals, but we all agreed our future was bright. As fans of this franchise, you have every right to demand a commitment to success from us. No one associated with the Mavericks organization is happy with the start of what we all believed would be a promising season. You have high expectations for the Mavericks, and I share them with you. When the results don't meet expectations, it's my responsibility to act. I have made the decision to part ways with General Manager Nico Harrison. Through the majority of the 2025-26 season remains to be played, and I know our players are deeply committed to winning culture, this decision was critical to moving our franchise forward in a positive direction. I understand the profound impact these difficult last several months have had. Please know that I'm fully committed to the success of the Mavericks. Thank you for your support. Thank you for holding us accountable. Thank you for your passion and for your patience. You deserve transparency and a team that reflects your spirit. Our goal is to return winning basketball to Dallas and to win championships. Our family is committed to that mission and to continue to invest in Dallas and the Mavericks' future. Please join me in continuing to cheer on our players and supporting those who work to make the organization the best it can be. Go Mavs. Thank you, Patrick. I don't know. That, like I said, I'm skeptical already because he's clearly not a basketball guy based on the fact that he's not been at many games this year. He didn't know that trading Luka Doncic in the middle of the night for, 50 cents on the dollar would be received this poorly. And, who knows? Maybe Nico didn't even realize it was going to be that bad, but I'm sure, anyone with, some basketball sense would have been able to see that coming. I've also heard that Mark Cuban is kind of looking into getting back into consulting and everything with the team. He was someone who was supposed to remain in charge, but he says that he got kind of forced out after selling by Nico Harrison, which is actually a pretty common story surrounding Nico Harrison, is people being forced out. You have consultants, medical staff, team officials, all sorts of people that were kind of forced out over the last few months to make way for, lack of a better word, yes men that are going to go along with Nico's plan and not challenge him on things too much. Which actually leads me to one thing that I've been thinking about, and that is a former Nico Harrison consultant named Dennis Lindsay, who is now the VP of basketball operations for the Detroit Pistons. He is reportedly who Mark Cuban is really pushing the team to go get to be the new GM, to be the next GM for the team. And it's easy to see why, because he left the Mavericks, went to the Pistons, and now the Pistons are the number 1 seed in the East, 2 years after being a lottery team. The results kind of speak for themselves. That stability, that basketball knowledge, and that passion are kind of unbeatable. Like, you need that to succeed in this type of world and in that type of role. So now, I don't know what the season is going to look like. I don't know what they're going to have Michael Finley and someone else take over as GM and basketball operations for this season, or at least for the near future. I don't know what that means. I don't know if it means guys like Anthony Davis are going to be on the trade block. I don't know what his value could be if they do put him on the trade block. Imagine the Lakers trade for him and then just pair up Luka, LeBron, and AD. That'd be crazy. I don't think it's going to happen, but it'd be crazy. And I don't know. You have all these guys, Klay Thompson, like I said, Anthony Davis, Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington, all these players who were brought in to be helpful to Luka Doncic. They built a perfect roster around Luka and then got rid of Luka. So now, if the plan is to build around Cooper Flag, they need to start working towards tooling the roster to Cooper Flag. But they're running him at point guard, and that's not going to happen for ever. He's not going to be a point guard for his entire career. Maybe it'll help him, in the long term. Jason Kidd gets a lot of credit for doing this with Giannis. I think, Giannis is just kind of a one-of-one freak athlete, and that has to be taken into consideration as well. But I think, as long as they run Cooper Flag at point guard, it doesn't really matter what those other moves are going to be. They need to see where he fits best and then build the roster around that. And that's not a one-season thing. It's not a interim GM project. It's a multi-year plan that needs to be done, because the Luka Doncic Mavericks were built slowly over a few years after everyone saw how good Luka was. You see him, he overachieves and brings the team a lot of success early on. They go out and build a great team around him that plays to all of his strengths and lets him play to all of their strengths. And now they have to basically shake the Etch-a-Sketch and start all over. So I'll be interested to see. I don't know if we're going to get a fire sale in the coming days here, a Dallas fire sale before the deadline, or if they're going to look to pivot a bit, or, who knows? Who knows what it's going to be. But Mavericks fans, this day has been a long time coming. Let me know how you're feeling. Let me know your thoughts on all of this. If you're excited for what comes next, if this doesn't matter until Dumont and all of them sell the team, if that's what comes next, if that's what you need to feel like everything is truly behind you, let me know. Let me know your thoughts on all of this and how you are feeling today, because that is the biggest thing, is how are Mavericks fans feeling now that the era of Nico Harrison is over. Which, by the way, he updated his Instagram, which I didn't know he had Instagram. What a bold man to still have that in the face of all of this. But he updated his bio today to say unemployed. Incredible. Incredible stuff, because it tells me that he just does not care. Or it's a fake profile. I don't know. I might have been getting centelled. But it looks pretty legit, and if this is real, then, I understand even more why Mavericks fans would be upset, because this is kind of like laughing at them over all of it, or not even showing any regret for how the way things have gone, and that's kind of even worse. But that's a whole nother rant for a whole nother time. Let me know, Mavericks fans and basketball fans, what you think about all of this and where you think the Mavericks are going to go next.